Hello, and welcome back for more Mechyard survival. In the last episode, we upgraded our resource collecting capabilities, and we built ourselves a great big, overly elaborate mining mech. It comes in two parts that operate independently. And we also upgraded our power situation. So we now have a little field of wind turbines and a couple of solar towers that track the sun. And between episodes, I have set up the solar towers with an event controller that turns the base lights on and off when the sun goes down and when the sun rises again. So all of our lampposts that we have around the base will automatically activate when it starts to get dark. And it kind of works. It works pretty well for now. It's a basic setup. But the next thing you might also notice is I have done a few other upgrades to the base. I have expanded the road running through the centre, and that is because in this episode I would also like to start building some more mechs. I would like to build some bipeds and have them patrolling around the base and guarding stuff. But the first thing to do in this episode is I want to upgrade these defense towers because the pipes with a gun turret on the end aren't really that cool. They're not that interesting to look at, and they currently, in their present configuration, they are just stealing all of my Gatling ammo every time I make it. So I want to set them up with something a little bit more elaborate. And the idea I have got for this is I would like to use the new cool looking pistons. And I would like to build a tower out of a piston that can raise up and clear of the buildings, and have a little custom turret on top of it. And I would like to build several of these in various positions around the base. And ultimately, I want to set them up with a AI defensive block to trigger our base defenses when a bad guy approaches, rather than just having them sat there draining power constantly. So the first thing we are going to have to do is chop these old towers down and then think about rebuilding the new ones. So it's grinding time. Right, now that that's sorted out, the next step is to sort out some AI controls to make this thing trigger when bad guys turn up. So we will head on over to our control tower and we'll start thinking about how to make this work. Okay, well the first thing we're going to need is an AI defensive block to detect enemies. And as far as I know, it doesn't really matter which way they go around, so I'm just going to stick it that way, so we can see the shield pointing at us for now. And that is what is going to detect bad guys when they get within, I think it's 2.5 kilometers. And when that detects an enemy, we will get that to trigger the weapon system. But I don't want to have to add a whole bunch of different individual things into that one block. So we are going to have a few other bits. So, for the other side of the defensive block, we are gonna need a trigger. So we'll have an event controller that will turn on and off a light that is in here somewhere that will alert us to the fact that the base defences have become active. And where are they hiding these days? Yeah, we'll have a light, a rotating light like that, so when the base defences are active, there'll be a big spinning red light in here, letting us know if it's all gone wrong. So that will activate that. Or rather, yeah, that will activate that. And then we're not going to have enough spaces in the event controller by itself to do all the things that I want it to do. So we will add a couple of timers. And that one can be defense towers on. And that one can be defense towers off. That way we should have plenty of slots to activate and deactivate all the different things that we want to do. Cool, so we'll get that welded up and we'll come back to this in a second. So next thing, we can set up the on-off switch for the defense towers. It will be block switched on and off. Oh yes, I forgot to finish building the rotating lights, didn't I? There we go. I knew I was missing something. So that can be the base defense systems light. Call it defense systems active light. Cool, so we can go into there. We can find our defense system active light. When that turns on and off, it will play with these two timers. So when it turns on, the first thing we want to do is turn that one off. When it turns off, I'll turn that one off. When it turns on, we want on to turn on. And then we want to trigger it and trigger that. Where is our light? There it is. We'll set that up like so. Turning that off deactivates the light. Oh, cool. When we activate that, there goes our defense tower. It extends all the way up. And it'll be clear of the roofs, and it'll shoot things that are up there. And then when the baddies are gone, it'll retract itself. So we need to set up that function, and that is what our defensive AI block is for. So when it detects enemies, it will simply turn that light on and off for us. Because that light now controls the entire defense system. So when a bad guy with weapons gets within range of our base, within 2.5 kilometers, I believe it is, it will activate the weapon system. and deactivate it when they are gone or dead. Cool, that works quite nicely. But I would also like to add an alarm in there, because who doesn't like a good alarm sound? So we jump back into there and we go back to our controller. We can have that play a sound and a bad guy appears. There you go, that'll do. 3 little beeps. Cool, so now when the defense system triggers, the lights go on, the turret goes up, a little alarm plays, but not for too long. You know what, I'm also going to turn that down a bit. I don't like it being at that speed. There we go, that's a little bit more sensible. Cool, so that looks like that works pretty well. Let's build 3 more. I might have to readjust the end of the road up there. But I'll build 3 more of them, and we'll come back in a minute. And then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, well that is a whole bunch of towers done. We've got 1, 2, 3 and a 4th one tucked in between the 2 scrap coma bays over there. I had to remodel some of the piping a little bit, but we managed to squeeze all 4 in. So we just need to set up the rest of the controls for these things then. Okay, so that's all the groups sorted out. So in theory, if I flick this light on now, there we go. All of our guns activate at the same time. Okay, well now that we've got all of those towers built and set up, we can just check to make sure they all work and are all pulling ammunition. Yeah, that's number 1. That's number 2. That's number 3. And that is tower number 4. Groovy. So they all work. They're all pointing at weird angles. We can turn off the base defences. They all reset thanks to the groups that we set up earlier. And there you go. That is our upgraded base defense system. So when a baddie gets within 2.5 kilometers, they'll pop up and get ready to shoot. And when they've blown up their targets, they'll retract and go back to normal. Fantastic. So now we can move on to the next part of my plan for this episode, which is building some walkers. I want to build some guards that can patrol around my base and keep everything safe. And that's why I have built these roads. And I used a little bit of a trick that I know to get some much shallower angles, because from lots of testing I've done over the years, the 2x1 slope blocks aren't quite shallow enough for mech walkers to walk up nicely. So we've got this little road that I've built that goes all the way around the base. I've also made a parking space for the crawler, because, well, parking him here is going to totally get in the way of anything that wants to walk up and down this road. So he has his own little parking space over here now, complete with a sign and a docking connector and a little bit of a guideline to get you in the right place. Okay, now over on the mech building platform that we set up in the last episode, I have made some signs and put on some of the details of some leg configurations that I know work, so I've used plenty of times before. So I have put some little signs on here so I can easily set things up and remind myself. So I've got some of the settings for a digitigrade walker, and I've got some settings for an undulagrade walker, so basically a double knee walker and a chicken leg walker. And I've also set up a button on the construction platform that turns on a projector and generates a merge block for us to start from. So we can weld one of those up, and then we can start building from there. Okay, well, we've got the basic sort of framework of a biped mech with digitigrade legs, and for anyone that has watched my tutorials on mechs and how to build them, they might find this design quite familiar. I've put some turret controllers in there for the arms. I've built him a quick little walk cycle. It doesn't need anything fancy because it's just going to be AI controlled. He's got a forward walk cycle at the moment and his arms swing in place, and that is controlled by a thruster on the back, and it will fire these event controllers down here that make the hips and the knees and the ankles move. There you can see there's the thruster firing. And we sit here. You can see the event controllers ticking over. That's going to be our basic walk cycle. And I've also built a bunch of other bits. We've got lots of different remote controls, because the AI blocks work really well for drones and certain things, but the AI recorder blocks don't seem to work quite as well for walker drones, so I stick to using the good old remote control blocks. So they seem a little bit more reliable when you're trying to get walkers to follow a set path, like along these roads for instance, whereas the recorder blocks, they tend to get a little bit confused if the mech gets knocked off course. They struggle to find their location again and do funny things, so we're going to stick with remote control blocks. And I've put an emotion block in there so we can see some different faces when he's doing different things, and there's a third remote for us to control, so basically that one will be for us to control it. That one will be the one for patrolling around the base. And that one, I'm going to attempt to give it a docking sequence so it can walk back to a little docking bay that I have yet to build, and hopefully rearm and recharge itself when it needs to. So the next step is going to be armouring this thing up a little bit, and then we can take it for a test drive and try and get it to work. Okay, well we finished armouring that up for now. Hoping he's not too off balance or too heavy. I've added a little bit more to the feet to spread the weight a little bit more and hopefully make him a bit sturdy. He's got a suspension in the back of each foot to try and catch the floor a little bit when he's leaning back. We've also added a few suspensions in a few other places in case he tips over and hopefully stop himself from smashing himself to pieces. What else? We've got a defensive block on a separate subgrid so it doesn't interfere with the other AI blocks that are in there. So let's see what happens when we try and cut him down. Right, there we go. We get him down here without making him tip over. Ooh. Okay, well now we have a walking drone. Probably want to set up some AI controls for him. What are his feet like after all that walking? They seem to be fine. Don't seem to be taking any damage. Cool. Right, well, I want him to do a bit of patrolling. We'll get him to walk from here. And do a loop round here. And walk up here to the middle. And then try and get him to turn around safely. Okay, well we want this guy to walk around and do a little bit of patrolling and walk back again. And I'm also planning to build the docking bays for this one and potentially another one here and here. And I also intend to extend this road round and meet that bit over there. But we'll do that a bit later. So for now, we'll just do some testing. So we want to make the mech walk around in a little patrol route. And for that we're going to use this pair of remote control blocks. We're going to have one to do the patrol route. And we are going to have one to do the docking sequence. If we can hopefully get that to work. So we've got this one here. We'll go with a starting position here for now. And we will create a whole bunch of GPS locations. So that's all of our GPS locations. We'll take this guy back to the start and we will give him a test run. So I've set up a couple of event controllers for a guard mode and a patrol mode, so we can have him follow us around or we can have him do the little patrol route that we're setting up. So when the patrol light turns on, it is going to activate and deactivate the autopilot controls. Right, so we can go into our AI patrol remote block and we can add in all the waypoints we just recorded. Right, so they are all in the correct order, theoretically. We'll set it to a 4 meter a second speed limit. We've got the camera looking front if we want to control it or look around in it. We'll set it to patrol, so it'll do a loop, it'll do a U shape, it'll go back and forth, back and forth. and we'll give it a little test. Right, so there he goes. He's off to his next location. He struggles a little bit on that hill. It's not too bad. See, this is the problem with using AI blocks to control mechs. They want to try and keep the thing level at all times, which means they walk on their tiptoes when they go up hills. Oh, there you go. He's not doing too bad. And while we're at it, I've also built this dude with a similar setup to the base defences. So he's got a controller and a light that turns his arm AI on and off, and turns it back off again. Okay, well he looks like he's working pretty well, and walking pretty well. That is a good start. So we need to think about how to get him to dock, and building him a docking station. Okay, well for this docking bay for the walker, what I want to do is build a rotating platform for him to walk onto, which will then turn around, engage a docking sequence, and then when he's all done, he can walk straight back out again. And if anyone has seen any of my building mini mech walker live streams, I built the perfect sort of docking bay system in that, so I'm going to try and recreate it in this game. So the first thing we need to do is make a little layer of blocks around the outside, and then the centre of that, make a slightly different colour, and for the middle we are going to have a little bit of a dip down so we can build a rotor in here. Now we're going to have to drill that out because we need the space. Okay, well that's the beginning of the setup, and pretty much how it's going to work is we are going to have the mech walk into the docking bay, and then I have slightly adapted the foot design so it can fit in between some mag plates that are on the floor of this platform. And then what will happen from there is the pistons will extend in and push it into the centre. The hinges will retract and again help it push into the centre. And then we've got some mag plates to lock it all down. And then once that is all locked, we'll have a rotor rotate the whole thing around, and then it's in a good position to launch back out of the dock. And it is also in a good position for us to set up the docking arm so it can rearm and refuel and all of that kind of business. So, building the docking arm will be the next stage. Okay, well, we now have all of that set up, and you can see behind me we have built the computer that is going to control all of this stuff. So it's going to start here, work its way around. It has 4 separate stages, and it has lights to indicate all the little bits that are going on. And I have boiled all of those controls down to a simple on and off switch. So if we activate our docking sequence, the pistons and hinges will extend and shove the mech into the middle. And then the mag plates will lock down, and once they're locked down, the whole platform rotates 180 degrees. And then when the platform's finished rotating, the docking arm should deploy. And when the docking connector meets that connector, it will stop the arm and lock everything down. And there we go. He is now docked, he is now connected, he is now charging, and when we finish the connector system, we can get him to rearm automatically too. So the next step will be to finish off this building and then program in some AI controls so we can get him to do that all by himself. Okay, well, I thought the sensible idea would be to sort out the AI controls first before we do any more building. So I have added a pair of extra controllers that measure the battery level in the mech, one for low battery, one for full battery. Full is indicated by this green light here, and that tells us we've still got plenty of charge left in the mech. And when the battery runs low, it will activate the orange light on the side, and it will also activate one of these 2 timers here. It will activate the start of our docking sequence. And what that does is when the mech makes its way all the way back to its starting position, all the way over here, it will trigger that timer, and it will swap from one autopilot setting that does the patrol route to the other autopilot setting, which will do the docking route, which will bring it down here and into the base. So, here we go. As he comes around this corner, he should reach the end of his patrol cycle, and then the timer should trigger and deactivate the patrol route and activate his docking route. There we go. He's making a left turn down the ramp. There is a small series of waypoints for him to follow. And then because of the sensor on the front that stops the walk cycle, he should walk into position and be stopped by the wall. And then the docking settings we set up earlier should all kick in. He'll lock down. I had to move the mag plates from the floor to the side because I can control them pretty well, but the AI kept tripping over them. And then in comes the docking arm, and now we're charging. And when the batteries are full again, this light should turn off, this light should turn back on, and it should initiate the patrol sequence again. And there we go, he is now fully charged, and he will make his way out of the docking bay. The docking bay will reset itself, and he'll carry on his way until his batteries have worn down again. So now we have a pretty much fully autonomous patrol unit that will just walk around the base, patrol around, look out for bad guys, and if his battery gets low, he'll come back and recharge, and then do the whole thing over again. So now, it's probably time to finish this bay off and make it look pretty. Okay, well, that is our docking station. or at least the beginning of it. I have run out of iron and now need to go and mine some more, so we will leave this one here for now. And that'll pretty much do for this episode. We've built a mech that can patrol around the base, and he can automatically go back home and get a bit of a recharge when he runs out of power. And when he's full again, he can launch himself again. So, thanks for watching, and I will see you all next time.